Welcome to the Home and Family Culture Podcast, where I discuss how families can discover and design their collective vision, values, beliefs, and traditions that influence their family culture. I'm your host, Jody Chafee. The purpose of my podcast is to interview successful individuals whose success influenced or was influenced by their family culture, and also experts who can offer tips and tools to aid families in their process of developing their family culture. In this episode, I had the privilege of speaking with Mary Ann Johnson. Mary Ann Johnson is the mother of 7 children and has been happily married for 46 years and blessed with 13 grandchildren and is a family connection expert. Her book, Becoming a Present Parent, focuses on what she knows and does best, helping children and parents connect. She has presented her presence concepts in workshops and webinars for over 7 years. You can get a free chapter of her new book at becomingapresentparent.com. Her website, maryannjohnsoncoach.com, is an online community reaching thousands of people. She created Family Connection Mentoring and is well known in the homeschool community as the Homeschool Coach. I had a wonderful chat with Mary Ann, and I hope you enjoy the episode. So welcome, Mary Ann. I'm so happy to have you on the show. So good to have you.
I'm really excited to be
here. So tell us a little bit more about your family, how you fell into this idea of present parenting.
It's an interesting story. So my husband and I was 21 when we married. He was 22. We had our first child 1 year later. Mm-hmm. And then we fairly quickly added 5 more children. And then we had a big 7-year gap. And when I was 40 years old, we had our last daughter.
Oh, wow.
My husband comes from he had a wonderful mom and dad, but his father was an alcoholic. And so he came into our marriage with some significant baggage. Mm-hmm. I also come from a really wonderful family. I have great parents, but my own personal family had some dark secrets, some abuse and other things, and I experienced that. So I came into our marriage with a big bag of stuff. Uh-huh. We are both very religious, very spiritual people, and I guess what we thought was that if we just were good people, all would be well. Frankly, parenting was very challenging for Don and I. Mm-hmm. Having children over a 39-year span is how long we had children in our home, was an exceptionally long time. Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of housekeeping that we needed to do in our own individual lives, which made parenting a little challenging for us. I look at our 7 children now, and they're really wonderful people, but we had 4 children who struggled with drugs. Mm-hmm. We had one child who struggled a little bit with alcohol. We have one child that is gay. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of that came from our parenting, because we had a really happy family. We went camping, we went to church, we did a lot of great things together, but life can be challenging, and our family was challenging. When I moved to Utah from Montana, where we raised our kids, I fell into the homeschool community. I started with an educational tool, and as I taught that tool for a few years, I realized that what I was really talking about was, how do we connect with our children in significant ways that bind them to us despite the chaos and the busyness and really some of the hardships of life. As I looked back on my own parenting, I realized the reason we came out on top, which we did eventually, was because we had done some things right. Mm-hmm. But there were a huge amount of things that we hadn't incorporated into our family that we could have had we really known about them. And so I started thinking a lot about that, and I started talking from that perspective of nobody has a perfect life. There are no perfect families. So, and as life has evolved, it's gotten busier and busier. it's interesting that we have more things to make life less busy, like washers and dryers and dishwashers, and yet technology really has moved us to be far more busy than even our pioneer ancestors.
It's true.
How do we navigate that? And so that's how that came about. I got so many emails from young mothers and fathers telling me that these very simple, ordinary, practical things that I was teaching were impacting them in such huge and dynamic ways that I started thinking, wow, this is really bigger than I thought. And so I set about to write down my feelings, my own experiences. I did a lot of research on what was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And a book evolved called Becoming a Present Parent. And, I just received an email from a young mom just this week who said, I have 4 small children and I feel like I'm going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And you give me hope. And I guess my ultimate message is, I get it. I know what it's like. But regardless of what you may be dealing with, whatever bag of stuff you have in your life that you have to work through, you can come out on top and you can have more joy in the process if you will just make a slight shift in how you think about what it is that you're doing. So basically that's how it came out and how it came about, and a little bit about our family. I think it's really important for people to know that I don't have a perfect family and that it wasn't easy, because then they can say, well, it's easy for you to say.
Right.
But what I want to say is, wow, you had some struggles and it still worked out for you. Oh gosh, okay, maybe it can work out for me too.
Yeah. And I like that you said that it can be something so simple. I mean, I think that families, they think there has to be this big grand performance or big aha moment that's going to completely change their lives. But actually, it's just taking what you already have and working with it to create something that you can envision for your family and and I like that. It's a practical, applicable thing that you're teaching and presenting to people. I love that.
Yeah, I noticed when I was doing my research just to see what was out there already that a lot of it is wonderful, but not very doable.
Right.
In a busy family, it's great counsel, it's great advice, but it's not doable. And in my experience, consistency is the number one key to success.
Yeah.
If you just can do a few simple, small things consistently long enough, you can get the result you're looking for. And so, that's the premise I come from. Okay, let's look at what's doable, and can you do it for the next 39 years?
Yeah, I love that, because you're right. When I read a lot of parenting books and like self-help books, and a lot of times when I'm reading them, I end up feeling kind of discouraged because there's this cognitive dissonance between what I've read and what my reality is. and it's hard to grasp and wrap your mind around it. But you're right. When you start applying things in small increments, it's so much easier to be consistent. And that consistency over time is really what produces the change that you want to see. It's not easy to do this grand overnight change, but because it's too hard, you'll just quit,
Right.
But if you think about things in smaller bite-sized portions, it's so much more applicable and easier, and you can do those small changes daily that will produce the change that you want to see. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So Marianne, how do you define family culture?
Well, when I was writing the book, I knew I needed to talk about family culture. I'd actually written and had some articles written on my website about creating family mission statements, which are about creating family culture. But I didn't know how to define it, so I had to go do a little research and say, okay, this thing that I know, that I understand, how do I really help other people know what it is? And I came up with some of the most interesting things. I think the biggest thing for me was there were a number of writers out there with large families. Warren Rustin, for example, who has like 7 children like me, was an NBA player. who said, well, building a family is like building a business.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about business culture, everybody gets that. Okay, we're going to make sure everybody in our business organization knows how we function.
Mm-hmm.
What do we value here? What do we not tolerate here?
Mm-hmm.
What is the outcome we want? Every business that's successful has that. And I thought, well, okay, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to say, instead of creating a business culture, we're going to bring that into our homes and say, okay, what do we value here as a family? What do we want our outcome to be? And what are we not going to have here?
Yeah.
And how are we going to manage that so that everybody knows what it is? So we're reminded every single day, here we are back to consistency with small things every day, so that we can actually get the outcome that we want. My husband and I just flew by the seat of our pants. And I just want to say, flying by the seat of your pants as a family is a rough way to travel.
Yeah.
There's no comfort in that.
It's a disaster.
You want to kind of get with seats. Family culture adds seats to your plane. It gives you some cover. It's not like flying in those old planes that, were open to the air.
Yeah.
It just gives you some comfort in the journey. And so a family culture is nothing more than deciding, what do I want my family to look like and feel like? More importantly, feel like. What do I want my family to feel like?
Yeah. And I mean, when you talk about business culture, they're very intentional about it, and they know and everybody knows what their corporate culture feels like, because they go to work and either they want to be there and it's fun, or it's light, or it's inviting, or they don't and it's miserable. Everybody can pinpoint that feeling when they go to work. But when for some reason, when you come home, it's hard to pinpoint that feeling. Where is this coming from? And how can we be intentional about it? But we don't think about it until we start to think that we do need to be intentional. There was a quote in what you sent me, that there was a difference between the design family culture and the default family culture. And I really liked that. So there's a big difference. Flying by the seat of your pants is the default, because family culture is going to be there no matter what, whether you design it or you fly by the seat of your pants, it's still going to be there. So
let me give you an example. Yeah. So I do a lot of one-on-one mentoring, and I'll have moms who will say, well, one of my triggers is dinner time. I just always feel so mad when I get to dinner time. And so I'll say to them, well, what is your system for meals? And they'll say, well, we don't have a system. And I'll say, well, then just tell me what it looks like. And they'll say, well, I walk into the kitchen and I think, oh my gosh, what am I going to fix? And the kids are running everywhere and people are getting in the fridge. And I keep saying, I'm getting dinner, just wait. They're explaining it to me. And I say to them, well, that's your system. It stinks, but it is your system. It's your default system. So what would you like it to look like? And family culture's like that. You have a family culture. It may stink because you haven't planned it. You've just let it happen.
Yeah.
But you can change it. You can say, well, okay, this is what our family culture looks like. It feels, I don't like how it feels. What would I like? And how would I like to feel? And then what would it be required to have that happen?
Yeah, so that would be the first step then, is defining what is going on in your family culture now, and then define what you want it to look like. Is that, would you say that would be the first step?
Yeah, so the very first step, so the thing I counsel people to do first is to think.
Yeah.
Think about, what does it feel like now? What do I like about my family? What don't I like about my family? What feels good? What doesn't feel good? What's working? What's not working? And then for parents to talk. So one of the things Dawn and I didn't ever do was talk. We never talked about discipline until we needed to discipline, and then we disagreed in front of our kids.
Right.
I was more strict than he was, or, whatever the situation. And so parents need to talk after you've made your individual lists about, what does it look like? How does it feel? Then talk about it. Well, why doesn't this feel okay to me? What feels not okay to me might feel okay to my spouse. Mm-hmm. So we can talk about that. Well, why doesn't it feel okay to you and it feels okay to me? And is there a place we can come together so this part would feel okay for both of us? So the first thing is you've got to think and talk just among the two adults.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times in my one-on-one mentoring, it's interesting. People will come to me to mentor about their kids, but what we always get to is it isn't the kids that are the problem. It's what is being modeled for them.
Yep.
It's the parameters and boundaries that are either not in place or not in place.
Yeah.
And that's causing the problem. Systems that have been designed and systems that are by default. Once parents get themselves together, the rest tends to fall into place much easier.
Truth. So what about families who it's just the one?
So if you're a single parent, it's the same process, except you just have yourself. Now you can bounce things off of your parent, mom, or dad, or a good friend, but mostly it's still you. You are the parent in the home. So you think, well, why doesn't this feel okay to me? Why are my kids responding this way? What is happening that's allowing this contention or this feeling? Or what is the feeling I would like to have when I come home? Mm-hmm. How do I want my kids to feel when they come home? It's still the same process of thinking about what is, mm-hmm. what you would like, what's realistic, what's not realistic. If we're looking for perfection, there's no family culture in the world that exists in that space. Yeah. That's not realistic. So we're never going to have a time when there won't be contention or there won't be an argument or somebody won't refuse to do their chores. I mean, those things just happen. But our family culture is actually separate from that. Mm. In our family, we serve each other. So if a child is not willing to do something, then you can pull that and say, you've decided as a family to embrace.
Can you define intention for us and yes. how, there's this vision and there's intention, and then sometimes it's different from your reality, but how does your intention and your vision help you to shape your reality?
Okay, so I'm going to actually read you the definition of intention, and I went to Webster's 1828 dictionary because I have found that I can get a better definition there than some of our more modern views of things. So in Webster's 1828 dictionary, it says that intention is a design, a purpose, the fixed direction of the mind to a particular object, or a determination to act in a given manner. So that's the end of the definition. So ultimately, it's the end or aim or the object that you're trying to accomplish. So in your family, what are you trying to accomplish? What is your aim? You've got to be clear about that. It can't be nebulous, pie in the sky. You've got to know. So let's say, for example, one of your aims is that your family members will always serve one another. Mm-hmm. Let's say that's it. And you have a day where your children are not being cooperative and they're doing aren't following through on their responsibilities. That's when you can gather them together and say, because your whole family knows the intention. In some way, every day, your family is reminded of your culture, your intention. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to have that happen. And so you say to your children, guys, what is one of the main things we do in our family? And somebody's for sure going to say, well, we serve one another. And then you can say, well, how is that looking today? Mm-hmm. Are we serving one another today? So how could we better serve each other today? Well, I could stop teasing Mary. I could pick up my blocks the way you ask me, because the whole family knows the intention. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't change the fact that you're going to have a day where everybody's not where they're not following through on the intention, yeah. But you can bring them back without going in the room and saying, you guys, why are we having a day like this? Uh-huh. What? You needed that. We've all been there, we've all done it. Where we can call our family together and remind them of the intention of our family and then carry on. And over time, over the 18 to 39 years that you have kids, depending on how many you have, you will achieve the intention ultimately, which is to serve one another. Now, I want to say there was a wonderful story that I used in my book, and let me see if I can't find the name of the man who said it, but he said, anything good we want to do is like driving in your car and coming to a red light.
Mm-hmm.
You know that if you run into 10 red lights on your way to work, you're still going to get to work, right? But in our family, if we have a day like I just described, we think, oh my gosh, my family's going to where in a handbasket. But the truth is, it's a red light day.
Mm-hmm.
Tomorrow, and for the next week, it's green lights, and then you're going to have another red light day. But over the years that you parent, if you are intentional about what you want to see happen in your family, you're going to get there regardless of the red light days.
Yeah.
And so we don't have to beat ourselves up on red light days. We just say, oh my gosh, we're having a red light day.
Well, and I think too, sometimes I think our families need to have a pause or a break. I mean, we don't want to have a red light day, but I think sometimes if there's something happening, we need to honor it and reevaluate or honor the needs that are happening in that moment sometimes. So it's like sometimes if we're having a rough day or mom's extra tired or something, then maybe it's like, I need to take a break from today. I think that will, and then come up with something that will help honor whatever it is that somebody needs. Like if your routine is normally to rush around, go run errands, go to play dates or things, but then you're having a red light day and you go, you know what, maybe we need to just stay in and read books or color or paint or do things that are going to honor whatever it is we need for this day, so that then we can start over again tomorrow. Would you say that would be an effective way of honor, continuing with that vision without losing what it is that your intention is? But then, because I think sometimes we encounter these red light days and go, oh no, I'm failing. But if we can look at it in a way and say, you know what, it's okay. This is just, like you're saying, this is just a stoplight. We're still on the right path. We're still on the right road. But let's just take this day and honor whatever it is that we need.
So if we have an intentional design for our family culture, we know where we're going, what is our ultimate goal, then when we have those red light days, and let me say that we can have red light weeks and we can have red light years. Mm-hmm. So if you have a new baby, you're having a red light year because that baby, and you're pregnant. So that's, for a good year, you're going to be a little off kilter. It's just the way it is. But over the long haul, if you understand what it is you're trying to accomplish in your family, what you want your family to feel like, then you can honor that. You can say, for the next 9 months while I'm pregnant, I'm not going to be getting up at 4 a.m. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be getting up at 5. I'm going to get up at 7 and get my kids out by 8 if they're going to public school or whatever, and then I'm going to crash into bed for an hour. Mm-hmm. When that isn't your normal thing, but you're okay with that because you realize it's not going to ruin my family, and you can talk about it. Part of having a family culture is discussing with your family. You can say to your family, we're having a new baby. The next 9 months are going to be a little different, mm-hmm. and we're going to make some adjustments. Now, everybody's on the same page, and they know this is a red light year we're having. Yeah. And we don't feel like failures because we can't carry on the way we were. Mm-hmm. But we know that for this period of time, but the intention for our family never changes, and we're clear what that is. Now, can I just say here that for religious families, mm-hmm. and I'm speaking as one, mm-hmm. we kind of think because we have a religion, because we go to church every Sunday, that is our family culture. Can I just say that it's not?
Okay.
It's what you've been taught. It's what you believe. It's what you want to have happen. But have you as a family sat down and said, well, in terms of real words and actions and feelings, what does that look like? Okay, so my personal religion, I might believe that my family is going to be kind, and my family is eternal, and my family is this or that or whatever. But I have to bring it home and say to my kids, okay, in our family, one of the things we're always going to remember is that we're going to be together forever. And so we really want to treat each other kindly. We need to support each other. So in our family, we support each other. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because we're going to be together forever. You see the difference in just this, because my husband and I were very religious. We were very spiritual. We had this idea of what we wanted our life and our family to be, but and our kids were going to the same church, and so they're hearing it too.
Yeah.
But we didn't bring it home and say, for our family, this is how we're going to make this happen. Yeah. This is what it's going to look like in our family.
So what you're saying is that the church culture isn't necessarily your culture, but what you bring home from church is what you have faith, you have your religion, but if you're not bringing it home and discussing it or incorporating it into your family culture, then it's not going to happen. I have a friend like that when I was growing up, we went to the same church and their parents were active in the church, but their mom felt like she couldn't, quote unquote, force her children to be faithful or religious. And so she wouldn't ever, the dad would bring up, oh, let's have these family meeting, or let's have these family prayers, or let's have these scripture study time. And the mom would go, no, you're forcing it on our kids. And then none of their kids grew up going to church anymore. And so it's interesting to observe that, where it's like, while the parents did believe and they had faith and they had religion, they were afraid to exercise or practice it at home. And so, but it comes down to, for me, when I was observing this, it came down to consistency, because the dad would and my dad would do this too. He's so funny. He would just spring it on us. Hey, we're going to have family scripture time, and go, oh, not again, because it wasn't a practice for our family. Right. And so basically, are you saying that in order for a family culture to be religious, you need to bring it home and not necessarily depend on the church to teach your family or to shape your family?
So what I'm saying is, if you are a religious or spiritual family and you have some kind of religious or spiritual practice that you do regularly, like going to church, that is not enough. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So let me use a non-religious example.
Okay.
Let's say that what you and your husband really value is honesty and integrity. Mm-hmm. Those matter to you. And let's say your church teaches that you should be honest and that you should have integrity. Mm-hmm. But what has to happen is, in your family, you say to your family, in our family, we are honest and we have integrity. What does it mean to have integrity? It's a discussion your family has. And then let's say that your child swipes something when you're at the Ben Franklin store. Mm-hmm. And 2 days later, you find a toy that you don't notice, and you take it to them and say, where did this come? And they hang their heads and say, well, when we were at Ben Franklin, I took it. Then instead of yelling and spanking and feeling like a failure of a parent with whatever your response is, you say to your child, oh, Jack, what do we believe in our family? What does our family do? We're honest. Yes, we do as a family. So today we're going to go back to Ben Franklin, and you're going to pay for this toy. And then you're going to have to do some jobs for me to get the money back. You've decided how you want your family to feel, mm-hmm. and the values that you want your family to incorporate. Mm-hmm. You bring those values into your home. You don't depend on a church to teach them. You teach them. Okay. And you're not forcing people. You can't force a person to be honest, right?
Right.
But what you can do is, when a person makes a mistake and is dishonest, you can remind them, well, in our family, we're honest, because you want them to be honest.
Yeah.
So in our family, for example, we had prayer every morning together as a family. And we did it early because our dad went to work early. And I wasn't trying to force religion on my kids, but I did know that the world is a tough place. And that in our family, we prayed. And so we would wake them all up at 6:30, and our older kids would be like this on the edge of the bed.
Yeah.
They were thinking, I don't know what this is about. But when I ask my kids now, what are some of your best memories? One of my daughters, one of the ones who struggled with drugs, said, Mom, what I remember is that we prayed together, and if we didn't know where you were, we could always find you in the bedroom on your knees, because those were some tough years.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, that really mattered to me. I knew that our home was safe and that I would be safe there. So it wasn't about teaching religion. It was about a feeling that Dawn and I wanted to create in our house. We're thinking about them. We're asking for help for them. We're sending them out into a tough world, knowing they're going to come back and they're going to be okay. And during some really hard years, when they were out there in the world and they weren't okay, they knew that when they came home, it was going to be okay. I remember one night, so I'll just give you another example. One of my daughters, who was using drugs, came home way late at night, and of course I was waiting for her. And when she came in, I said to her, and she was high as a kite, I remember saying to her, oh, you missed family prayer, so let's just have it now. And there we were at like 2 or 3 in the morning, kneeling by the bed, and she's, and she's going, Mom, ah. And I was able at that time to say, I love my daughter, and I'm asking you to take care of her and to help us have a good night and to be okay tomorrow. That daughter and I have a pretty tight relationship now, and part of it is that. It's the culture we had, that she knew when she came in our house, there was a certain feeling that was going to be there. Mm-hmm. And I feel that through 12 really long, hard years, it was that, even though Dawn and I hadn't created an intentional family culture, there were a few things we did so consistently that our kids could depend on them, and it tied them to us. Mm-hmm. Let me give you one more example, just because I want people to understand that an intentional family culture is super, super powerful. Our culture wasn't even intentional, but there were a few things we did so consistently. So we had one son who would come home. He left home, and he didn't really live at home starting in about 9th grade, and he was in and out, and he'd come home periodically and say, I hate being here. I hate you and Dad. Oh, our families, I hate our family. And my husband and I really just would bite our tongues and say, well, we're so glad you're here for right now. Well, I hate being here. But he'd hang around, and then he'd go back out on the street or to live with a friend or whatever he was doing. And that was like that for quite a few years. I want you to know that son is super, super connected to Dawn and I. He's in his mid-40s now. He calls home. He talks with us the other day. He's gone back to college. He's going to become a professor of philosophy, of all things. Mm-hmm. And he's doing really well, but it's tough to be in college at 47 years or, 44 years old, trying to do what kids do at 21. And he called me just recently, and he was in tears, and he said, Mom, I'm just having a tough time. And we talked about what he could do and what would be helpful. And when we hung up, I remembered all the times he came home and said, I hate this family. I hate you and Dad. He came home because there was a feeling there that in the midst of his despair and his challenging choices, he needed. Mm-hmm. That's the value of, and our culture, like I say, wasn't very intentional, but we did have these few practices that we did so consistently that they could be counted on, and they created a feeling of safety, and he needed that. And now at 44 years old, he's free to call home in tears and say, man, I just need to talk to you. Mm-hmm. And so some people don't intentionally have a family culture because they think it's going to be too hard. I have teenagers, they're not going to want to do it. I have little kids, they can't really participate. None of that is really the truth. Yeah. And it will be so worth it, regardless of the difficulties your family experiences, if you will just take a little time and think and talk to your spouse if you've got one, and organize your thoughts, and then go to your family and say, here's what I'm thinking, and get their thoughts. And then you as the adult come up with a final draft. And I always say, write it down.
Yeah.
Write it down. It can be one sentence. I've seen family mission statements or family statements of intent, whatever you call them, as short as one line and as long as 20. You can do what works for your family, but then it's on your wall, or everybody has it's on the bathroom mirror typed out, or everybody's memorized it if it's short enough so that you can remind your family about it. Well, in this family, this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is how we are.
Yeah. That would be helpful too of kids who go, oh, well, their family does this. And you go, well, that's not what our family does. Or in our family, we do this. And every family is different, and that's okay. Because every family it will have their own family culture. Every family will have whatever different values and intentions that they have for their families. And when you start recognizing what your family intention is, that makes it easier for you then to be able to solidify what your family identity is, apart from whatever else is going on in anybody else's family or in the world, and any other things that may be confusing in our general culture outside of our family, if you have your own family culture.
You can always honor everyone's opinions and ideas within a family culture. So if your child comes to you and said, well, this is what they do in their family, that's when you can say, that's interesting. Maybe we should talk about that. And now you bring that to the family and say, so-and-so's thinking this is pretty good. How do we feel about that? Do we do that in some way? Because if you think about a business, they review their culture periodically. And if they need to make a change, make something better, they make a change. So a family statement of intent, an intention, is open for revision every now and then, because we grow, we change, we learn new things, and we might want to add, or we might want to take something out. And so a family statement of intent or a family culture that's defined for a family doesn't mean this is it and it can never be changed. It just means for now, this is it.
Okay.
And we can revisit it.
And you can revisit it on those red light days too, and red light weeks and months and years. There you go. Let's figure out what's really going to be working. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marianne. This was awesome, and I really appreciated your insights about family culture. It's something that I think has been, very, very useful. Tell us one more time where our audience can find you and learn more about you, and also order your book about present parenthood.
So you can go to MaryAnnJohnsonCoach.com, and I have a ton of articles there that are helpful when it comes to being a present parent. And you can also go to BecomingAPresentParent.com, and there you can get a free chapter of the book on touch points. If you have contention in your family, you're going to love this chapter. And you can also, there's a link there where you can order the book, or you can go on Amazon and order it, and you can find it in most bookstores too. So
awesome. Thank you so much, Marianne. This episode has really had me thinking since I've had this discussion with Marianne. I've been thinking a lot about this idea of family culture by default or by design. And I was telling a friend of mine about my discussion with Marianne, and how she said that they did so much by the seat of their pants when they first started out, and that's not how she recommends developing your family culture. But then my friend said, well, that some people prefer to live that way. They want to be spontaneous. They want life to be a little bit messy. But then that's the thing. If that's what they have decided, then that is their family intention. Like an organized mess, it's still a design. So it's a lot like what Marianne said, that you may have red light days, weeks, months, or even years, but when you communicate those instances with your family, you still have a family intention, and you're all on the same page with that intention. But then this got me thinking about how you can be intentional about your family culture when mom or dad has depression or chronic illness, because the struggle is real. Even when you're suffering or struggling to function on a daily basis, you don't want your kids to suffer too. Just because things aren't ideal, you can still have a family culture by design with communication and consistency. You can still have an intention if you evaluate what you are still able to do, such as show love with hugs and affirmations, or maintain a feeling of openness and vulnerability. You can communicate with your family what the intention is going to look like until things are different. Just remember, you and your child were meant for each other. Somehow, you have just what they need to thrive. So what does your family culture look like? What does your family intention look like? You can go on to my show notes at www.homeandfamilyculture.com, and you can download the PDF that Marianne created just for you about how to design your family mission statement. So I hope you go on the website and check that out, and check out all my show notes. You can listen to this episode either on my website, or you can listen to it on iTunes or Stitcher or TuneIn, and you can even go onto YouTube, because I upload the episodes onto YouTube as well. So go check it out. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and Pinterest, and I'd really appreciate if you could like or share or comment. I'd really love to have your feedback and maybe suggestions for a topic that you would like to hear about family culture. And thank you. I just really appreciate you listening. Thank you for your support.